She was the most advanced aircraft carrier Japan ever built, armored to survive bombs that would cripple any other ship, built to take a beating and keep fighting. And she was destroyed on her very first battle by something no enemy ever fired at her. She was destroyed by her own ventilation system. This is the story of the Taiho, the carrier that was supposed to be unsinkable and lasted barely 3 months. By the time Japan finished building the Taiho, the war had already turned against them. The easy victories of the early Pacific were gone. American shipyards were launching new carriers faster than Japan could ever hope to match. So Japanese engineers made a decision. If they could not win the war on numbers, they would try to win it on quality. They would build a carrier so tough that no single attack could put her out of action. The Taiho was that ship. Every Japanese carrier before her shared one fatal weakness: a wooden flight deck. A single well-aimed bomb could smash straight through the planking and explode inside the hangar below, where aircraft, fuel, and ammunition were packed together. The result was almost always catastrophic. That is exactly how Japan lost 4 of her best carriers in a single morning at the Battle of Midway. The Taiho was designed so that this could never happen to her. She was the first Japanese carrier with a heavily armored flight deck, strong enough to absorb a direct bomb hit and keep operating. Her vital spaces were shielded. Her hangars were protected. On paper, she was the strongest aircraft carrier in the entire Pacific. She was also one of the largest carriers Japan had ever sent to sea, displacing well over 30,000 tons. She carried more than 60 aircraft. She was fast, heavily armed, and bristling with anti-aircraft guns. When she was commissioned in March of 1944, the Imperial Japanese Navy believed they finally had a carrier that could stand toe-to-toe with anything the Americans could throw at her. But hidden inside all that armor was a flaw that nobody fully understood until it was far too late. To carry so much weight up high, including that heavy armored flight deck, the Taiho had to sit low in the water. Her lowest hangar deck was almost level with the waterline. And the deep wells beneath her aircraft elevators, the shafts that lifted planes up to the flight deck, actually extended below the surface of the sea. Worse still, the tanks holding her aviation fuel were placed near those wells. It was a quiet, invisible problem. As long as nothing pierced her hull near those tanks, it did not matter. The entire design simply assumed her armor would keep enemies away from her most vulnerable point. It was a gamble. And on her very first battle, that risk failed. In June of 1944, the Taiho sailed into the largest carrier battle in human history, the Battle of the Philippine Sea. The Americans were invading the Mariana Islands, and Japan threw nearly its entire remaining carrier force into a desperate attempt to stop them. The Taiho was the flagship of the fleet, carrying Admiral Jisaburo Ozawa, the man entrusted with turning the tide of the war. The hopes of the Imperial Navy sailed with her. On the morning of the 19th of June, everything seemed to be going well for Japan. The Japanese fleet had not even been spotted yet, and the Taiho was already launching wave after wave of aircraft against the American carriers. For a few hours, the battle actually looked winnable. And then, beneath the waves, an American submarine called the Albacore lined up the perfect shot. The Albacore fired a spread of 6 torpedoes straight at the Taiho. What happened next became one of the most haunting moments of the entire Pacific War. A young Japanese pilot named Sakio Komatsu had just been launched from the Taiho. From the air, he could see the torpedo trails racing toward his ship, and he made a decision in an instant. He turned his aircraft and deliberately dived straight into the path of one of the torpedoes, giving his own life to destroy it before it could reach the carrier. His plane and the torpedo vanished together in a single blast. He saved the ship from one hit. But there were still 5 more torpedoes in the water. 4 of them missed. 1 did not. A single torpedo struck the Taiho near her bow, exactly where her hidden weakness lay. The explosion tore open the forward elevator well and ruptured the aviation fuel tanks nearby. The elevator jammed. Seawater, gasoline, and aviation fuel sloshed together in the broken pit. But here's the strange part. The damage seemed almost minor. The armored flight deck was completely undamaged. The ship was still moving, still fast, still able to launch and recover aircraft. Admiral Ozawa, looking at a carrier that appeared barely scratched, ordered flight operations to continue. As far as anyone on the bridge could tell, the Taiho had just proven exactly how tough she really was. They were wrong. The ship was already dying. They simply could not see it yet. If you are enjoying this story, take a second to subscribe to the channel. We dig into the forgotten wrecks and the lost ships that history has quietly buried, and there is a new one coming every week. That small click genuinely helps these stories reach more people who would love them. Now, back to the Taiho and the mistake that doomed her. Down in the wrecked forward section, fuel was leaking. The mixture of gasoline and aviation fuel in the flooded elevator well began giving off thick, invisible, highly flammable vapor. It started to fill the lower decks. The crew could smell it. They knew it was dangerous. The problem was that the man placed in charge of damage control was inexperienced, and he made a decision that sounded perfectly reasonable and turned out to be fatal. He decided the best way to deal with the fumes was to clear them out of the ship. So he ordered the hatches opened and the ventilation system run at full power, hoping to blow the dangerous vapor outside. Instead, he did the exact opposite. The ventilation system pulled the fuel vapor out of the damaged bow and pushed it through the ducts into every corner of the ship. Compartment after compartment slowly filled with an invisible, explosive cloud. The Taiho was quietly turning herself into an enormous, floating bomb. And all it would take was a single spark. For 6 long hours, the Taiho steamed on, looking calm and steady on the surface, while inside her hull, the air grew more lethal with every passing minute. At around 1:30 in the afternoon, the spark finally came. No one knows for certain what caused it. A generator, an electrical fault, a piece of machinery. It did not matter. The vapor ignited, and the entire ship erupted from the inside out. The explosions were enormous. The armored flight deck, that was meant to be her greatest strength, was blown upward and torn apart. Her sides were ripped open. The very armor designed to protect her now trapped the force of the blast inside, making the destruction far worse. The proudest carrier in the Japanese fleet had been gutted by her own fuel. The Taiho began to sink fast. Admiral Ozawa was transferred to another ship so he could keep commanding the battle. For the men still aboard, there was very little time. When the Taiho finally went under, she took roughly 1,650 of her crew with her. Only around 500 survived. She had been in service for barely 3 months, and this was the first and only battle she ever fought. It was a disaster Japan could not absorb. In the same battle, 2 more carriers were lost, including the veteran Shokaku, destroyed by almost the same deadly chain of torpedo damage and fuel vapor explosion. Within 36 hours, Japan lost 3 carriers and the heart of its naval air power. The Battle of the Philippine Sea broke the Imperial Japanese Navy as an offensive force, and it never truly recovered. And the Taiho herself rests somewhere in the deep waters of the Philippine Sea, far from land, in an ocean thousands of meters deep. Unlike the more famous wrecks of the war, no expedition has ever located her. She has never been photographed on the seabed. She has never been surveyed. The most advanced carrier Japan ever built lies in total darkness, undiscovered, with most of her crew still sealed inside her. There is a bitter lesson buried in the story of the Taiho. She was built to be the toughest carrier in the world. Her armor could stop bombs. Her design could shrug off hits that would sink lesser ships. And in the end, none of it saved her. She was not destroyed by the strength of her enemies. She was destroyed by one small torpedo, one hidden flaw, and one well-meaning mistake. The unsinkable carrier sank herself, and to this day, she has never been found.